Smoke rises once again over central Gaza, over the seaside town of Al-Zawayda, as the echoes of an explosion ripple across the narrow strip of land. The view is grimly familiar, plumes of grey drifting above rooftops, the air heavy with dust and disbelief. After 9 days of silence, the guns have spoken again. Gaza's civil defence units were the first to confirm the toll. 5 bodies, all civilians according to local officials, were transferred to Al-Aqsa Hospital following what they describe as an Israeli strike. Their stretchers arrived within minutes of the blast, sirens cutting through the chaos as ambulances fought their way through crowded streets. Israel's military, meanwhile, says the strike was a response, an act of self-defense after what it called a series of attacks carried out by Hamas militants against its forces operating in southern Gaza. The army insists the truce was first broken by militants, not by its own aircraft. "We will respond to every attack with precision and determination," said an Israeli Defense Forces spokesperson, "and we will not allow Hamas to dictate the terms of security." For residents of Al-Zawayda, those words mean little. What they saw was a sudden flash in the sky, then thunder. Families ran into the open, clutching children and whatever belongings they could grab. "We heard the blast and ran outside. Everything was covered in smoke," one man told local reporters, still shaking as he pointed toward the charred remains of his neighbour's house. The explosion shattered what had been, for a brief time, a fragile return to normal life. In the past week, fishermen had gone back to the sea, markets had reopened, and families were repairing the holes in their walls. Today, those same families are once again picking through rubble. Inside Al-Aqsa Hospital, doctors and nurses scramble under flickering lights. The wards are already beyond capacity, supplies are nearly gone, fuel for generators, painkillers, even clean water are running out. A young surgeon wipes sweat from his face and says quietly, "We are working hour by hour, not knowing when the next strike will come." Outside, the sky turns a darker shade of grey. Smoke from Al-Zawayda drifts slowly west, spreading across the coastline like a bruise. United Nations officials have called the renewed violence deeply concerning. Aid agencies warn that Gaza's population, more than 2 million people, half of them children, cannot endure another full-scale offensive. For many, this latest blast is more than an isolated incident. It is a warning sign that the truce, brokered with difficulty by Egypt and Qatar, could soon unravel completely. The ceasefire had been hailed as a breakthrough, a temporary halt after nearly a month of devastating warfare that left thousands dead and whole districts flattened. But on this Sunday afternoon, that promise of calm feels already out of reach. Along Gaza's narrow roads, streams of people carry what little they own. Some are returning to shelters, others heading to relatives' homes farther north. One woman, holding her child tightly, says she told her daughters the war was over. "We told them it was finished," she says, her eyes fixed on the sky, "but now they know it is not." Across the border, the Israeli government repeats its justification. Officials claim Hamas exploited the truce to regroup, repairing tunnels, repositioning fighters, smuggling weapons. No ceasefire can survive if one side uses it to prepare for the next war, a senior Israeli official told state media earlier today. The army's position, he added, is clear. Hamas broke the truce. Israel is responding. Hamas rejects that accusation entirely. In a statement posted online, the group said, "The enemy seeks excuses to bomb our people and sabotage the agreements reached under Egyptian supervision." It accuses Israel of provoking confrontation precisely to derail upcoming negotiations over prisoner exchanges and border security. Caught between these competing narratives are Gaza's civilians, people who have no control over ceasefires or airstrikes, but live with their consequences every hour. In the streets of Al-Zawayda, young men dig through the wreckage of what had been a small grocery shop. A refrigerator lies twisted in the sand. A child's backpack sits in the dust. A man lifts a piece of debris, calling the names of his missing cousins. As evening approaches, the glow of fires can be seen miles away. The power grid, already fragile, has failed again. Volunteers form human chains, passing buckets of water from one set of hands to another, trying to douse the last flames. "Every time we think it's over, it starts again," mutters an elderly resident staring into the smoke. Humanitarian convoys, which had begun moving through the Rafah crossing during the ceasefire, have now paused operations. Egyptian officials say renewed hostilities make safe passage impossible. The World Health Organization warns that any delay in fuel deliveries could be catastrophic for hospitals dependent on generators. Aid workers describe a desperate race against time, medicines spoiling in heat, surgeries cancelled mid-procedure, patients moved from one ward to another as power flickers on and off. International reactions have been swift. Egypt and Qatar have both appealed for restraint. Turkey condemned what it called a reckless act that endangers regional stability. The United Nations Security Council is expected to hold an emergency session within hours. Diplomats say the meeting will focus on verifying whether the truce has been violated and by whom, but privately admit the chances of restoring it soon are slim. Inside Gaza, the blame game matters less than survival. At Al-Aqsa Hospital, corridors echo with cries and the metallic rattle of stretchers. 5 bodies lie under white sheets, their names handwritten in marker. A paramedic removes his gloves, leans against the wall, and whispers that he has carried too many children today. In the courtyard outside, dozens of people have gathered. Some carry flags, others hold up photos of the dead. "Where is the ceasefire?" one man shouts. "What was it all for?" His voice is swallowed by the crowd's chants, demanding justice, demanding the world's attention. For journalists on the ground, covering Gaza means standing between contradictions, between official statements and what the camera sees. The Israeli army insists its strikes are target-specific, aimed at militants alone. Yet the images tell another story. Concrete shattered, homes reduced to dust, women sobbing over stretchers. International monitors have yet to confirm either account, but the visuals speak for themselves. Analysts warn that both sides are locked in a cycle that neither can escape. Each act of retaliation feeds the next, eroding trust and hardening positions. A political solution feels distant, a humanitarian one urgent. The ceasefire, once presented as a bridge to peace, now looks more like a pause before the next storm. Children who had just returned to school are again displaced. UNICEF says nearly half of Gaza's population are minors, many now in shelters for the second or third time this year. Teachers have turned classrooms into dormitories, blackboards into notice boards listing missing relatives. Psychologists working with aid agencies describe widespread trauma, nightmares, anxiety, the constant fear of aircraft overhead. As the night deepens, the coastline falls silent except for the low hum of drones. The fires in Al-Zawayda burn low, sending thin trails of smoke toward the sea. From a distance, they resemble candles, small points of light in an ocean of darkness. Diplomats in Cairo and Doha are already speaking of de-escalation, a familiar phrase that offers little comfort to those under bombardment. The United States and the European Union have both called for restraint, urging Israel and Hamas to preserve the progress achieved. But on the ground, progress is a fragile word. In Gaza, it can disappear in a single explosion. The latest events underscore how fragile peace remains even after the guns fall silent. For a week, Gaza's fishermen had returned to the sea. Farmers had reopened their fields. At night, families gathered on rooftops, trying to believe that calm could last. Today, those same families are again fleeing, their dreams of normalcy buried under ash. In Tel Aviv, Israeli analysts argue that deterrence must be restored, that every violation must bring a response. In Gaza, residents hear only the roar of jets. Between these realities lies the chasm that diplomacy struggles to cross. By dawn, smoke still hangs over Al-Zawayda. The rubble is cooling. The air smells of salt and soot. A few volunteers remain, sweeping broken glass from doorways. In the distance, the sound of the sea returns, gentle, indifferent. For now, there is quiet again, but no one calls it peace. What began as a fragile ceasefire is now a question mark hanging over millions of lives. Each side claims the other fired first. Each promises to retaliate again if provoked. For Gaza's people, the only certainty is uncertainty itself. And as the first light touches the shoreline, the smoke drifts slowly westward, toward the sea, toward the horizon, a haunting reminder that in Gaza, even peace comes with an expiration date.